I'd like to welcome to the show Kyle Jordan of the Kyle Jordan Project. What's going on, Kyle?
Hey, how you doing, Mike?
Hanging in there, buddy. Uh,
That's good. That's good.
how is it up there in Canada?
Yeah, actually pretty good. Actually, it's a little rainy right now where I'm at, but I'm the warmest part of Canada. I'm on Vancouver Island. So, it's 700,000 people on the entire island, and we are separated by water from everybody and everywhere else.
That's good.
And so, yeah, we get green grass all year round. So, I'm happy. The rest of Canada gets jealous, but,
Right.
they could move here. So,
So let's talk Kyle Jordan. What got you in? What got you started in music?
well, I mean, I started in music when I was 11 years old, as a drummer. I grew up in the middle of Alberta, the province Alberta in Canada, and I grew up in a farming community. But I'm not sure. I think I was the mailman's or something because I got to be honest. Everybody, all my cousins, my brother, everybody, they're mechanically inclined,
Right.
and I mean, the first thing I did when I was like 3 years old or 4 years old, I went and stole my dad's tools and some wood and some nails, and I made myself a musical instrument. And so from there, that's all it was. I just couldn't. I mean, it was a very 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 primitive musical instrument at that age. But
Hey.
I basically what I did is I nailed some nails at different lengths into a board, and
Right.
then I took spoons and I would hit them, and I could hear the different notes
Right.
and that each one would play. But that was my start. And so as early as I can remember, I've been I've been into music and uh, playing with bands. I was playing with bands that with band members three times my age when I was 12 years old. So
Right. Right.
yeah.
Now, did you come from a musical background? Or I mean, did
Ah,
your parents were they musicians or anything?
yeah, so my mom, she actually was a gospel musician,
Oh,
and she actually had back in the '80s, the early '80s, she had late '80s, I guess. She had three number one gospel hits
oh wow.
throughout the states, and I got to be honest, I don't remember much about that. I wasn't really around
Right.
much
Right.
at that point, but I grew up, and so I grew up where there was always our living room wasn't your typical living room. There was always a drum set, about three or four or five guitars in there, a keyboard, a few bass
Right.
guitars, a bunch of amps and speakers and mixing boards and so I just grew up. I thought this was normal. There was always a guitar or something to pick up and play. And
Right.
my uncle, who I don't really know the whole story, but I guess he was started out with the crash test dummies way back in the day before they were the crash test dummies, and he never made it to that stage. But he lived with us, and he was a phenomenal guitar player.
Right.
And he and I would jam. I'd be like 10 years old. He had a drum kit, and he'd be on his guitar, and we'd just be playing for hours at a time. So yeah,
Right. So you have a couple singles out.
yeah,
The first one is called Demons.
that's right.
And I always say that musical is a very powerful tool or a very powerful medicine. It can get you through the best of times. It can get you through the worst of times. And Demons, from what I understand, you suffered a pretty life changing experience.
Yeah, about 3 years ago, I was diagnosed with a brain tumor, um, and it was really, really traumatic. It got to the point where my muscles even were basically atrophied, and I couldn't even. I was so weak, I couldn't close my own car door.
Oh wow.
So my wife would drive me home, and she'd have to come around and close my car door because I couldn't even close it. I needed help getting out of the vehicle even, so I wasn't going anywhere. Um, but eventually, I got put on some medication that at least helped with that, and I got a little bit of strength left. I was strength back. I was quite tired, but I got some strength back. And throughout that time, I started being able to pick up my guitar again. At first, it was just my wife would have to place the guitar on my lap for about 10 or
Right.
15 minutes, and I could strum it for barely just doing cowboy chords for about 5 minutes, and I'd put it down.
Right.
And from there, I didn't couldn't play my drums for about 2.5 years. And during that time, though, as I proceeded to get stronger, and I the brain tumor actually. I was scheduled to have surgery, but before I could get there, it ruptured.
Oh,
And
wow.
so, yeah, and so I was rushed into emergency. I almost died. I almost died a second time because I almost died the first time because my body wasn't getting until they got me on the medication. They were
Right.
worried I wasn't going to make it, and then they got me on the medication, and then a few months later, the it ruptured, and so they of course, luckily we lived pretty close to the hospital, but I couldn't even walk. I couldn't even get out of bed, so the ambulance had to come, and they had to get the stretcher and bring me out, and so I spent about, I don't really know, it's kind of a blur in there, but because by the time they got me to the hospital, by the time they got me through the operation, the emergency operation, it might have been 10 days. I'm not really
Oh,
sure.
wow.
I know that I was in there in recovery for 5 days, but there was probably 10 days in total between recovery and
Right.
everything. And so I almost died. And when I came out of the hospital, my right eye, because it had hemorrhaged and things had gone wrong, um, it had affected my eyesight really badly, and so I couldn't really see anymore. I had to keep this eye completely covered.
Right.
Pardon me. This eye completely covered. My right eye completely covered, and my left eye went in like this, like a little bit, and it had lost quite a bit of vision. And so I was essentially basically blind. I couldn't drive. I
Oh,
couldn't.
wow.
Every I had to, so I would kind of, everything was just blurry enough to that I remember my first day I laid around the house, and I was just thinking, how am I going to get through this, right? And recovery was a big deal. It took about a
Right.
while, and I picked up. I remember grabbing. Well, I couldn't, but my dad had come. My dad and stepmom, they were amazing. They had come to help take care of me because, unfortunately, out of the blue, on the same day that I got out of the hospital, my mother-in-law died.
Oh,
And
wow.
we weren't expecting that, and she was a province over, so my wife had to fly out there to deal with her funeral arrangements and help her
Right.
dad. So my dad and my stepmom were up helping me, and I asked my dad. I said, "Could you bring one of my guitars into the living room because
Right.
I had set up on the couch,
Right.
and I was basically just living on the couch, I mean, the extent of my physical activity was maybe 15 minutes a day, right? And so on day two, I actually grabbed the guitar, and everything was by feel pretty much. I couldn't see what I was doing too much, but
Right.
I could hold a notebook up like this and do kick and scratch, and I could, big letters across the page. It looked terrible.
Right.
Yeah, I've got a Gibson J45 that I love to use for when I can't plug anything in or just kind of hanging around, and
Right.
my it's my only acoustic guitar, and I would sit and I wrote Demons. I wrote the first draft of Demons on the second day I got out of that hospital because I was so angry. And
Well,
I was like, no, I'm gonna beat this, right? So yeah,
if people sit down and watch the video for it
yeah.
and, listen to the song, it's a very powerful song. I mean, as soon
Oh,
as I
thank you.
heard it, I'm like, "Oh, man, this is about what happened to you." You
Yeah,
know?
yeah, it really was, and it's great. Like my band member Greg, we all write the songs together, and I sent him a copy of it, and he made he added the part, you think you're bigger than me, but look how I've grown. And I just
Right.
love that because to me, that's the ultimate, it's defiance, but it's good defiance. Right.
Right.
And
Right.
yeah, yeah. And so, yeah, uh, um, yeah. So no, a lot of people have contacted me and said, it's such a powerful song. It's become kind of an anthem for them. And yeah,
Right.
so,
Yeah, it's a
yeah.
powerful song. I mean, I think it's amazing. And, like I said at the beginning, music's a powerful tool. It's a powerful medicine. And if it helps you get through those bad times, you know, I mean, that goes to prove it right there.
It really is. I remember when I was writing it, I was going, okay, all right. I didn't even know if I'd be able to play music again. I couldn't see anything.
Oh,
I
you
my
had
yeah,
you had
yeah.
to been scared. I
I
mean,
was, I was, yeah, yeah. I mean, for about the first 3 or 4 months, I remember I just sat. Sat and played music. That was all I could do. And
right.
as I continually got better and better and better, interestingly enough, and you got to kind of chuckle at this. The record label, Sony Records, that we're with,
Yeah.
the 3 or 4 days after I got out of the hospital, I had been scheduled to have an interview with them
Oh, wow.
as into whether we want. And I remember everybody saying, Kyle, just see if you can rebook it. And I said, no. I said, future Kyle will thank me for this. So I
Right.
so I gathered. I was 6 o'clock in the morning my time, and because 9 o'clock their time, and I was. I was hopped up on painkiller. I don't remember that interview, but we talked for 2 hours, and somehow it all worked out. So.
That's
And I mean,
something.
that exhausted me for the whole day. I
Oh,
was done.
I bet.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And now I look back and I tell them about it, and they just chuckle. They're like, "Oh my god, you did that!" I'm like, "Yes." If you don't remember, if I don't really remember the terms of my contract, kidding,
Right.
kidding. Yeah. So, but yeah, yeah. So that was quite the time, and especially with my mother-in-law passing away at the same time, and then actually my father-in-law who lives in Montana, or my stepdad, I should say. Sorry, my stepdad who lives in Montana. He got bit by a black widow spider, or brown recluse or something, and wound
Right.
up in the ICU for because he didn't do anything about it. So he wound up in the ICU for 5 days at the
Oh,
same
wow.
time as well. So we were all just kind of like, what next?
So,
Yeah, yeah.
and how long has the Kyle Jordan project been together? You guys been
So
together?
that's an interesting question because when I got sick, I decided I was simply, the Kyle Jordan project was supposed to be me on a little 8-track recorder, recording some blues music for my dad because I'd given my dad some blues music before, and he loves blues.
Right.
And I thought this will be something for me to do right while I'm hanging around. And it was never really supposed to be anything more than that. Um, but then I wrote one song, our first song ever that came out actually, but we didn't wasn't through a label, so it didn't hit uh, uh, radio. But it was called "Love by You," and but I wrote that, and I at the same time I met my friend Greg. I remember I couldn't really leave the house at this point. I was pretty
Right.
much housebound.
Right.
And so this is going on at the very beginning of it. So probably over 2.5 years ago, and I met my friend Greg online, and because of COVID, he had been doing an online business and
Right.
hadn't been able to really get out. And with his band, was a progressive metal band called Red Helen. I don't know if you've heard of them or not, but they were a pretty cool band. And anyway, he and I started writing music together just as our friendship grew, right? We both
Right.
liked writing music. And so, he was a great bass player. I was a drummer. And so after a while, we were like, oh, we should record some of this, but we still weren't a band, right? We were just two guys writing music. So
Right.
we included another friend of ours, Katie Burke, who lives down in Los Angeles, and she actually did some vocals on "Love by You," as did Greg, and I played the guitar and the drums. We took it to the studio in Victoria here, and just kind of put it out. And then we started doing this for all of our songs. We're like, well, this is fun, but we weren't really. And then Greg says, maybe we should put these up on Spotify at least so people
Right.
stuff. Yeah,
Right.
so we did, but then everything just kind of took off. When I signed with Sony Records, what we decided at this point was, okay, it was going to be the Kyle Jordan project was still me, and I was going to act as more of a, I guess you could say, DJ Khaled in the rock world, or Alan Parsons or something, where
Right.
Greg and I were writing the music together, and but we were using musicians from wherever, and we were just putting it all together, and that was just going to be like, we were going to do this album experience, and that was going to be
Right.
really fun and really cool. But then, we got, a little bit more time passed, and Eric kind of joined us, and now the three of us are writing all this music together, and we're producing it and putting it out, and slowly all the other musicians, we're not using them anymore, and then we got this guitar endorsement from Godin guitars, which are really really cool, and we thought, people are really liking this. Maybe we should take it a little more seriously. So,
Right.
although the Kyle Jordan project existed in one form for quite a while, and was the three of us, but it was me and out of Victoria, British Columbia. That was the main thing, and we were just writing and having fun. It's changed to a band in January of this year. So even after Demons came out, we decided, okay, we're going to make this official. It's the Kyle, Eric, and Greg, and we each have our roles, and we we write all the songs together, we produce them, we record them, and so yeah, it really just kind of changed. It's really evolved from
Right.
this thing where it was supposed to be like this little homegrown blues project
Right.
to this. So yeah, so it's been great. It's been great.
And now you have your second release out, Tall Blonde Honey.
Yes, yeah, that's doing really good. It's so it's on the DRT or
It kind of has that I'm starting to notice it has that old school rock and roll type feel to it. And I know
That was
there's a
the
lot of
idea.
bands that are starting to do that again. And I think it's great.
Yeah, well, it's pretty cool. It's kind of fun. We had this idea that we were like, okay, what do we want to do? Because when we started out, we were just recording things. We were just testing the waters, right? We were recording everything from pop to jazz to Americana to hard rock to just what do we want to do?
Right.
And in the end, what we kind of decided to do is we had we're kind of going, two directions, but they two streams, but they kind of come into one.
Right.
And we've got more like Demons, the modern anthemic type rock that you hear.
Right.
Then we've got every few songs we write kind of that party rock that with a bit of a classic vibe, and that's what Tall Blonde Honey is, right? We've got another one. We have like 25 songs sitting in the bank right now, and that are not released, and I'd say every few, we've got quite a few anthemic type songs, but we like those party songs too. They're fun, and we've got another one coming up. We've got two more anthemic singles coming up, and then our next one after that is another party song just called, Might Get Stoned. And what we did with that is, it's just like this garage rock, like whereas Tall Blonde Honey is almost reminiscent of some of like, Buck Cherry's Crazy. What I don't think I can say it on the radio, but that classic type of stuff, right? Whereas with a bit of a still a modern edge, and not modern enough that we can still get some radio play. But then
Right.
This one called Might Get Stoned. It's hilarious, and it's kind of tongue in cheek, and it's supposed to be like garage band rock, right? Like it's got those dirty tones and those,
Right.
and yeah. So
that's good that you can do that. Different variations of different genres of music. I mean, it's pretty good. People can do that.
We enjoy it.
And that way it doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't get stale. So to speak.
Exactly. We want to stay with what our audience likes, which is in that same in that vein, that rock vein, right? Modern rock vein, but let's play around in there a little bit, right? So, and that anthemic sound is really popular with we've found that's really done really well for us, and of course we're going to keep that up, but also not every song needs to be quite like that, right? So so when we're having fun and just I mean, it's kind of funny. There's I think it was Chad Kroger from Nickelback once said, he said something about his music. He said, everything we write is just tongue in cheek. It's supposed to be a joke, and people take it seriously.
Right.
Well, I would say that we kind of have that same style of humor, and when we do a song, kind of like Tall Blonde Honey or Might Get Stoned that's coming up, right?
Right.
It's not doesn't take itself so seriously, right?
Right.
So
Now, are you
yeah.
guys planning on releasing an album or CD? Or anything?
Yeah, right now we're releasing a bunch of singles. We're working our way through choosing 15 songs that we really like. There's a couple we haven't recorded yet. And probably 10 of those or so are going
Right.
to be singles that we release, and after those are released, we'll release the album with the extra 5 on there. Not that the songs that are on there almost couldn't be singles, they probably could, but the reality is that maybe they don't quite mesh with what we're trying to put out on radio, right? And yet they're great songs and they're a lot of fun. So
Right.
and
That's what it's
yeah,
all about, though, is having fun. If you're not
oh, it really
having
is.
fun, then why are
Yeah,
you doing it?
exactly. Exactly. Some of my favorite bands that I grew up with were just about having fun, right? Some of
Right.
them
I
were
would say.
serious, but
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
that brings me to my next question. Who were some of your inspirations?
Well, funny enough, some of mine go way back before, almost to my dad and grandfather's time. Like I say, I grew up in a farming community, so for
Right.
me, the first sounds I was hearing on the radio was country music, right?
Right.
So I mean, I grew up on Waylon Jennings, Johnny Cash,
Right.
yeah. And then my dad was a bit of a rocker, and so he loved his Rolling Stones and his Three Dog Night and
Right.
his he loved his blues. But for me, I when I started digging into my dad's stuff, I became a big fan of bands like I especially as a drummer, right? Because drums are my first instrument, my first love. John Bonham from Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
Like I love Dave Grohl, right? Dave
Right.
Grohl from Foo Fighters, Nirvana. Nirvana was still before I was really into popular music because I was still pretty young at that point, but Nirvana was still, that kind of started it, right? And Dave
Right.
Grohl was just, so those are my earliest influences, and then oh, sorry, I'm interrupting myself, but this is kind of a funny story.
Okay.
There's a famous Canadian rock band called April Wine. I don't know if
Oh
you've heard of
yeah.
them. But
April
yeah,
Wine. Yeah.
yeah, they're fantastic,
Oh
and
yeah.
so when I was about 17, they were in coming to Red Deer, Alberta, and my friend was staying with me for a couple of days, and she says to me, I said to her, I said, "Hey, April Wine's coming to town." She said, "You know who that is?" And I said, "Of course I know who April Wine is." And she said, "Oh, do you want me to get us ticket?" And I said, "Sure, okay. Um, let's how can you do that?" She says, "Well, my uncle is Miles Goodwin." So her uncle was the lead singer of Rainbow Wine.
Oh wow.
So yeah. So at 17, I mean, it was an 18 plus show, but at 17 we went to the door and they gave us our tickets, and we
Oh
went
wow.
up to the front, watched the whole show, went back in the tour bus, hung out with them for a while in the tour bus. And it was interesting. Because actually when I wrote Might Get Stoned, there's a which is coming out. You'll hopefully you'll play it for me when it comes out. But
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
it was actually kind of written as a joke about that weekend. I mean, we were 17 and we went a little wild that weekend, and including our little April Wine. So there's a nod to April Wine in there. It's one of their song lyrics, and the whole
the
song
whole
is an
song is an
exaggerated version
exaggerated
of that
version of that
weekend.
weekend.
And
And
but anyway, sorry.
sorry.
Today
Today
though,
though,
I'm
I'm
also
also
into a
into a
lot
lot
of
of
modern
modern
bands
bands
too.
too.
That for example, like I really love the Glorious Sons. And actually, we have the same drum maker, myself and Adam Paquette from the Glorious Sons. Huge fan of Glorious Sons. I'm a big fan of the Pretty Reckless, Granny Van Fleet.
Right.
And the other guys too, like Greg's a huge, believe it or not, Kendrick Lamar, Phoebe Bridgers. So we don't just stay in our lane, right? When we're
Right.
listening to, we're listening to everything. So, and a lot of progressive metal for Eric as well. So,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
And you take all that and throw it into the pot.
We just kind of threw. I think if you were to take this weird mix of, uh, the Glorious Sons and Imagine Dragons and 21 Pilots and the Tragically Hip, and kind of throw it all in one big cauldron.
Right.
Mix it all together, you kind of have something like our sound.
Yeah. Well, it's a
Yeah.
great sound that you guys
Oh,
have. I
thank
think
you.
it's awesome. I mean, from when I heard Demons, and then you sent me over Tall Blonde Honey, I was like, is this the same band? You know, but it's a good mix though. I really enjoy it because I know what the song Demons means to you, and
Yeah.
I totally respect that 100%. And then you hit me off to the side with this Tall Blonde Honey, and I'm like, what? I'm like, all right, this guy's got it going on here. So, but it's great music, and I'm looking forward to hearing more from you guys. I think you guys are awesome. If you guys ever
Thank
get to
you.
play here one of these days, I come out and see you.
I'd love it. If we're ever in your area, I'll let you know for sure.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
yeah.
I could be that girl at the April Wine concert. Hey,
That'd be awesome.
let me ask you one more question, Kyle.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for any upcoming musicians?
Yeah, just stick with it. Sometimes it gets really, really complex, and sometimes you feel like, man, am I really gaining any ground, right?
Right.
But you are, and it's hard right now, right? For musicians, it's hard to get paid as a musician these days, right? To make a living at it, and I know that discourages some of the younger generation out there, whoever's playing. But my only advice is keep at it, keep writing that music, keep recording it, keep performing it, because you know what, if you keep it something long enough, you'll be able to make it work. If you're determined enough, you're going to be able to make it work, even if it's even if you're 10 years down the road, and you paid all your dues. So I think a lot of people give up a little sooner than they should. So
Yeah,
that's just my personal take.
I think the same thing. You have to keep pushing. You
You do.
have. You can't stop. If that's your
Yeah,
dream, you just have to keep chugging it.
it is.
It's
And don't be afraid of self-promotion either, because
no
there is no one else that's going to promote you like you are going to promote you.
right.
And
Okay.
there's so much good music out there these days that a what you would call a quote unquote hit song is not enough to be a hit song anymore.
No.
So you need that promotion. So don't be afraid. If you're a young guy putting it out and you're putting out great music and you're not going to give up, don't be afraid to just get it out there. It's hard at first, especially if you're someone who feels like you're like, oh, look at me.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, sorry. Those would be my two things. But yeah.
All right, Kyle. Can you tell the people where to find your music at?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find us on Instagram under Kyle Jordan Project. We are on Facebook, and I would say, while we have the Kyle Jordan Facebook page, I would go to just plain old Kyle Jordan, find Kyle Jordan. That is where we interact the most. We have a lot of fun. We interact on Instagram and Kyle Jordan the most. Our website, www.kyljordanproject.com. Another great place. And yeah, I would say, and please, 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 if you're a Spotify user, it helps us out tremendously if you follow us on Spotify. Yeah. I can't say that enough. It seems to be, I've never been a numbers person, but recently it's been made known to me that I need to promote that a little bit more. Yeah, thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for coming on the Metal Shop 101, man. Looking forward to hearing more music
Awesome.
from you guys coming out. So it's been great. It's been a pleasure to have you, man.
You as well. Thanks, Mike.
All right.